Hi there! Today, I want to clear up a huge myth that surrounds training with food and food motivation. And I promise, once you understand the truth behind that myth and you see how I can help you increase your dog's food drive, training will become much easier. Let's go! Every single time that I post a new training video somewhere on social media or in my online classes, I get one type of response. And that is some owners are really demotivated because their dogs are not food-driven enough to want to train. And a lot of my training utilizes food as it is the most accessible and easiest reinforcer in general. I totally understand it is super frustrating and demotivating when your dog just not want to have your food. They refuse your food no matter what great treats you select, and it seems like you don't even know where to start training. Now, here are the good news. It is a complete myth that food drive is a set trait. Your dog does not have one static level of food drive. It does not have to stay the same throughout their whole lives. We can change how willing your dog is to work for food and to take food from you. Now, let's dive into this a little bit deeper. There are definitely some traits in our dogs that are completely set in stone. If you have a black dog, like Kix behind me, you will always have a black dog. If you have a dog with a thick double coat, they will probably always be shedding and you will always have to brush and vacuum. If you have a retriever, they will probably enjoy carrying stuff around. If you have a beagle, they will love to sniff. If you have a border collie, they will love to stalk, and this is just who they are. Now, food drive, however, does not fall into this category. Just because your dog does not take food for training from you right now does not mean this is how it always has to be. It is a myth that we cannot change our dog's level of food motivation. And once you understand this, that opens so many doors for training. Just because your dog's food drive is low right now does not mean it will always be low. We can change that. Now, how do we work on changing that? Unfortunately, many dog owners whose dogs have low food drive for training actually self-sabotage in some way. It is an inherent human trait for some reason that we tend to repeat things that are not working just to convince ourselves further that they're not working. So I actually have seen many dog owners repeatedly putting their dogs into a situation in which they would rehearse refusing food. And this actually often happens with some sort of environmental reinforcement for not taking the food. So let's say you are at the park and you offer your dog a piece of food and they do not take it and instead run off and greet other dogs or pee on interesting bushes. That is ingraining not taking the food, and it actually is strengthening not taking the food. Because the dog is not sad that they didn't get your food, the dog is happy that instead they got to hang out with friends or pee on good bushes. So the first thing you need to do is to stop putting your dog into situations in which they can and will rehearse refusing your food. You already should have a pretty good idea about the type of situations in which your dog is not taking food rewards. Do not offer them. If you know at the park your dog is not taking food rewards, don't offer them. Just put it back into your pocket and instead we'll start in easier situations. There are some dogs that do not even take food for free out and about. So with those, we start at home. And I recommend that you start out by feeding your dog a couple treats from hand for no particular skill several times a day. So you might be working on your computer, you have a little break, you get up, you take 5 or 10 great treats, you give them to your dog one after the other for free, and you continue working. What this does is that it builds a reinforcement history for taking your food. Your dog has already rehearsed many times to refuse your food. Now we need to undo this. we have to build up a bunch of memories of the dog happily taking the food without refusing it. So this is why we start out in an extremely easy environment without asking for a skill. If your dog is a particularly picky dog, then you should do this before regular meal time so that they have an appetite. Once your dog is good with this, then we can start working on taking food for free outside. And you should start in very easy situations, for example, in your backyard or right outside the front door. And again, no strings attached, just free food, and we want the dog to take it without hesitation. Only once your dog can take food for free without hesitation, then we can again up the ante a little bit. Maybe now we're tossing food across the ground and we're asking our dog to go and get it. Now, this type of building food drive gradually takes time. You will not succeed in creating perfect food drive in your dog within a week. It takes time to undo the rehearsed behavior of refusing food and ingrain the new behavior of taking food. What I want you to remember is to absolutely stop putting your dog into a situation where they can rehearse refusing your food, and instead proactively create situations in which your dog rehearses taking your food. And the foundation rule for this will be to make these situations easy enough that your dog can take the food. Last but not least, I want to share with you that while it looks like all of my dogs have fantastic food drive in the videos, this has not always been this way. The dog behind me, Kix, is a working line border collie. As a puppy, she was so driven by motion, she was so fascinated by everything that moved, that I had a really hard time getting her to eat anything because something was always moving, even if it was just my other dog. So with her, I actually started out in a completely empty room, just feeding her single treats, one after the other. And then I would have a toy that I would move just a teeny tiny bit, half an inch or an inch, and then I would have her eat. And over the course of weeks and months, I built up to a level where she was able to take food in any situation. But please don't believe just because you see my dogs taking food in all the videos that they were born with great food drive. Actually, I would say only one of my dogs was born with fantastic food drive, my golden retriever. Fusion was born with pretty good food drive. Kix was born with so-so food drive, and my little dog Party was actually born with pretty poor food drive. And for the entire first year of Party's life, I hand-fed him pretty much every single piece of food in the situations in which he couldn't refuse it until I had built up this food drive to the level where he will take food anytime, anywhere. So, if you have thought that what keeps you back from training is your dog's low food drive, and that's just a law of nature and this is just how it's gonna be, no, this is not how it is always going to be. You can change your dog's food drive, I promise, by just investing a little bit of work into preventing situations where they rehearse refusing food and proactively creating situations where they rehearse taking food. You can already make a big difference. All right, and now I wish you happy food drive training.